And how are my listeners right now? We're at chapter 31, verse 36 of the book of Job. Surely I would take it upon my shoulder, and bind it as a crown to me. I would declare unto him my adversary the number of my steps. As a prince would I go near unto him. Notes. In other words, I can face any man without any kind of guilty conscience. I am this sure of my integrity. Verse 38. If my land cry against me, or that the furrows likewise thereof complain, if I have eaten the fruits thereof without money, or have caused the owners thereof to lose their life, let thistles grow instead of wheat, and cockle instead of barley. The words of Job are ended. Notes. Now Job is not trying here to justify himself before God, but merely answering the charges made against him by his so-called friends. And speaking of friends, we got another so-called friend right now. His name's Elihu, chapter 32. So these three men ceased to answer Job because he was righteous in his own eyes. Notes. Now, it should be noted here that it was what these three friends said and not God. Actually, God said the reverse is true. It is these three friends here who are righteous in their own eyes, not Job. Okay? Some people call that a contradiction, but it's really not. Verse 2. Then was kindled the wrath of Elihu the son of Barachel the Buzite of the kindred of Ram. Against Job was his wrath kindled because he justified himself rather than God. Notes. Well, Job was not trying to justify himself in the eyes of God, but rather he was stating his case. As it regards Elihu, it was his self-righteousness which caused his anger against Job. Verse 3. Also against his three friends was his wrath kindled, because they had found no answer, and yet had condemned Job. Notes. Now right here he sets himself up as being spiritually above all those who were even there, including Job. Verse 4. Now Elihu had waited till Job had spoken because they were older than he. When Elihu saw that there was no answer in the mouth of these three men, then his wrath was kindled. Notes. Well, he showed just a little bit of respect to Job by waiting until he was done speaking because he was older. But the truth of the matter is, and this book will bear it out, that Elihu would have been better if he wouldn't have said anything at all. Fools have a tendency to walk where angels won't even dare. Verse 6. And Elihu the son of Barachel the Buzite answered and said, I am young, and you are very old. Wherefore I was afraid, and did not show my opinion. I said, days should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. But there is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty gives them understanding. Notes. In verse 7 he's saying, you are older than I am, so you should know more wisdom, but you actually don't. And in verse 8 he's basically claiming to have great understanding from God. Verse 9. Great men are not always wise, neither do the aged understand judgment. Notes. Now he's saying, even though I am younger, I understand more than you do. I mean, right to his face. What impertinence. Verse 10. Therefore I said, hearken to me, I also will show my opinion. Notes. Now some claim, and I've heard this recently, that Elihu was actually a typology of Christ. However, that is contradicted by his statement. The Lord does not actually have an opinion. He only has, thus saith the Lord. So, we're done with that, okay? Be careful with who you're listening to. Verse 11. Behold, I waited for your words. I gave ear to your reasons while you searched out what to say. Yes, I attended unto you, and behold, there was none of you who convinced Job or who answered his words. Notes. He's saying, I have heard all that has been said and done, and no doubt there were many others present who also heard this entire exchange. Verse 13, lest you should say, we have found out wisdom. God thrust him down and not man. Notes, now this last phrase is true. God will ultimately have the last say and not man. Verse 14, now Job has not directed his words against me, neither will I answer him with your speeches. Notes, in other words, he's going to bring forth some fresh arguments. Okay? Try to figure some things out here. Verse 15, they were amazed and answered no more. They left off speaking. Notes, the three friends, Zophar, Eliphaz, and Bildad, they were so amazed at this young man's so-called knowledge, so they answered him by absolutely saying nothing. They were just absolutely shocked that this young, smart-aleck little punk would appear and just try and say that he's spiritually above them all. Verse 16, when I had waited, for they spoke not, but stood still and answered no more, I said, I will answer also my part. I also will show my opinion. Notes, he waited for them to answer, and they said nothing, but now he's going to show his opinion. In other words, it's my turn. Verse 18. And this is where it really gets kind of disgusting. For I am full of words. The spirit within me constrains me. Behold, my belly is as wine which has no vent. It is ready to burst like new bottles. Now, notes, he's saying, I must speak. To be sure, it was his spirit and not God's spirit, okay? And to be noted, only a young man with very little knowledge could make such foolish statements, okay? Verse 20, I will speak that I may be refreshed. I will open my lips and answer. Let me not, I pray you, accept any man's person, neither let me give flattering titles unto man. Notes, now by saying these kinds of things like this, he's almost directly saying, I'm not going to show any respect to Job. Quite frankly, he may have actually directed that at the other three friends who are probably just ready to just leave. Verse 22, for I know not to give flattering titles, and so doing my Maker would soon take me away. Notes, once again we have this knucklehead putting himself spiritually above Job. Chapter 33, wherefore, Job, I pray you, hear my speeches and hearken to all my words. Notes, well, the truth is, Elihu has nothing to say, so God will ignore all that he will say, thereby tendering the worst insult of all. His own self-righteousness screams as loud as the three friends. Well, actually, his is actually a lot worse. I mean, even they were turned off by this knucklehead. Verse 2, behold, now I have opened my mouth, my tongue has spoken in my mouth. My words shall be of the uprightness of my heart, and my lips shall utter knowledge clearly. Notes, now, looky right here. He evidently has a very high opinion of himself. Well, we'll see what God thinks about Elihu whenever he completely ignores him in the later parts of the book. Verse 4, the Spirit of God has made me, and the breath of the Almighty has given me life. Note, he is coming close here to saying that the words he will utter are actually from God himself, okay? So this is more spiritual arrogance by him. Actually, it's not even spiritual, it's just nonsense. Verse 5, if you can answer me, set your words in order before me and stand up. Notes, now, this is kind of funny to me. Job did not even dignify this man with a response, okay? And that's exactly what God actually did. He punished Bildad and Zophar and what's the other one's name? He punished the three friends by telling them to go make sacrifices, and, well, we'll cover that. I'll cover that a little bit clearer. But Elihu was completely ignored. Okay, verse 6. Behold, I am according to your wish in God's stead. I also am formed out of the clay. Notes. In other words, if you just listen to old Uncle Elihu, all your problems are going to be solved. I may just be only a man, but I can give you all the answers for which you have sought. Verse 7. Behold, my terror shall not make you afraid, neither shall my hand be heavy upon you. Note. Now, how foolish to insinuate that Job would just be so afraid of the absolutely amazing amounts of wisdom that this young punk would actually have. Verse 8. Now, well, and I'm calling him a punk because that's exactly what he is. Surely you have spoken in my hearing, and I have heard the voice of your words, saying, I am clean without transgression. I am innocent, neither is there iniquity in me. Notes. Now, Job had never said these things. God never said that about him. He said that he was perfect, and in that case, it actually means not to be sinlessly perfect, but it actually means to have a heart that seeks God continuously and to do everything that you can to serve Him. Therefore, Elihu has made a very, very grievous error. Job never claimed that he was sinless. Verse 10. Behold, the Lord finds occasion against me. He counts me for His enemy. He puts my feet in the stocks, and He marks all my paths. Notes. Now, Job did say these things. In chapter 16, verse 9, chapter 19, verse 11, 31:2, 6:28, 35 through 37, and chapter 31, verse 4. I mean, there's like a dozen more examples at least. Verse 12, Behold, in this you are not just. I will answer you that God is greater than man. Notes. Now, it is a poor way to justify God by urging that He is all-powerful and may do what He actually likes. It's not right. Verse 13, Why do you strive against Him? For He gives not account of any of His matters. Notes. Now, Job had not striven against the Lord. Therefore, this little accusation right here falls flat right there. Verse 14, For God speaks once, yes, twice, yet man perceives it not. Notes. Now, in a sense, Elihu is claiming that God has spoken to Job, but that Job is so lacking in spiritual understanding that he just simply cannot perceive it, even after a second time. Verse 15, In a dream, in a vision of the night, when deep sleep falls upon men, and slumberings upon the bed, then He opens the ears of men and seals their instruction, that He may withdraw man from his purpose and hide pride from man. Notes. Here Elihu claims that Job is unduly proud of his integrity. Well, to have great integrity is certainly something that you should actually be proud of. And I'm talking about the kind of pride that says, this is a great accomplishment. I'm not talking about someone being arrogant and high-minded, okay? So keep that straight. Verse 18, He keeps back his soul from the pit and his life from perishing by the sword. He is chastened also with pain upon his bed, and the multitude of his bones with strong pain. Notes. So he is saying right here that Job is being chastened by the Lord. Now, that's not correct. He was being tested, but he was not being punished to be corrected. That's wrong right there. And we'll have to pick up in chapter 33, verse 20 of the book of Job. Thank you, and God bless.